7 Japanese Minimalist Habits to Increase Daily Joy. Have you ever wondered why Japanese living spaces always feel so peaceful, so simple, yet so complete in a way that's hard to explain? In a culture where silence speaks louder than words and empty spaces are valued just as much as what fills them, Japanese minimalism isn't just a lifestyle, it's a way of being. It's not about getting rid of everything. It's about making space for what truly matters. We live in a time that constantly urges us to do more, have more, and become more. But ironically, the more we accumulate, the more disconnected many of us feel. We chase productivity, we collect things, and yet, that quiet sense of emptiness lingers. So the question begins to form. Is there another way? A slower, more intentional path? Japanese minimalism might just hold the answer, but perhaps not in the way you expect. Because often, when viewed through a Western lens, minimalism gets reduced to appearances, clear countertops, all-white rooms, empty shelves. But in Japan, minimalism runs far deeper. It's not about visual simplicity, it's about spiritual alignment. It's about crafting a space and a rhythm of life where every object, every moment, and every choice holds meaning. A tidy room is just the surface. Beneath it lies centuries of philosophy rooted in mindfulness, harmony, and quiet purpose. There are subtle yet powerful principles that guide this way of life, unspoken rules that shape how the Japanese live and relate to the world around them. They're not always easy to see, but for those willing to slow down and look a little closer, they offer a kind of wisdom that can be felt deeply, even in silence. In this video, we'll explore 7 of these gentle habits practices that quietly support a life filled not with excess, but with enough. A life that invites joy not from what you add, but from what you understand. And it all begins with the very first habit. 1. Prioritize quality over quantity. Have you ever looked back at your life and realized you once bought something just because it was on sale, or because everyone else seemed to have it? And then, that item quietly ended up in the corner of a closet, never truly becoming a part of your life in any meaningful way. That realization often comes slowly, but when it does, it's clear. Quantity can never replace quality. In Japanese culture, there's a profound concept called matanai, a gentle expression of regret for what goes to waste. Not just material things, but also effort, time, and connection. When you choose something, you're not just bringing home a product, you're beginning a relationship. A relationship between you and an object that may walk alongside you for years. If that choice is rushed, you'll soon find yourself living among things that don't truly belong in your life, and your heart will grow heavier because of it. Prioritizing quality over quantity isn't just a consumer habit, it's a way of living. It's how the Japanese choose one coat that lasts 10 winters, instead of 10 coats for a single spring. It's how they take years to find a solid wooden table, and then treat it as part of the family. It's the quiet pride in every small item, from a pair of scissors to a set of chopsticks, because when something is made to last, it brings a sense of security, contentment, and self-respect. When you surround yourself with things that are durable and meaningful, your mind settles. You no longer need to upgrade, replace, or chase after trends. Because everything you own has already proven itself not just in craftsmanship but in emotional value. And in that space, you begin to feel a different kind of happiness. The peace that comes from no longer having to choose more. The Japanese call this the art of living with just enough, not too little, not too much. This is where the philosophy of wabi-sabi quietly shines. Beauty exists in the worn, in the cracked, in the stillness of something that has weathered time and still holds its worth. When you hold a well-made item, you're not just holding an object, you're holding time, a story, and a part of yourself. And perhaps the most profound shift is this. When you begin to appreciate what you have, you begin to appreciate who you are. You no longer buy to fill a void, you buy to nurture a connection. You stop seeking short-lived excitement and start choosing lasting calm. There's a Zen saying in Japanese, "The happy person is the one who stops before it's too late." Choosing quality over quantity is one way to stop, to pause, to breathe, and to live with what truly matters. Not more, but better. If your mind feels cluttered, start with one item. Look at it closely, touch it, and ask yourself, does this deserve to walk with me for years to come? If the answer is yes, keep it with care. And if not, maybe it's time to return a little space back to your life, so that something truly meaningful can find its way in. 2. The 1-month waiting rule. Have you ever felt like something seemed absolutely necessary the moment you saw it, only to forget about it entirely just a few days later? That urge to have something right away often feels real, even urgent, but it tends to fade as quickly as a cherry blossom drifting to the ground with the first breeze of spring. That's why the Japanese embrace a simple, yet profoundly mindful habit: waiting 30 days before buying anything non-essential. This rule isn't just a budgeting trick. It's an invitation to enter a different state of being, one where you pause, observe, and truly listen to yourself before making a choice that may seem small but carries more weight than you realize. That pause becomes a space between two notes, a moment where you can see more clearly what truly holds value and what might be just a passing emotional wave. In Japanese culture, there's a concept called mono no aware, a deeply felt sensitivity to the impermanence of all things, and an appreciation for the fleeting beauty of life. Cherry blossoms are its most iconic symbol, radiant and breathtaking, but here only for a short while. And it's precisely because of that brevity that people learn to cherish each moment more deeply. Shopping is no different. If something truly matters, it will still be there after 30 days. If it fades, perhaps it was never meant to stay. Waiting teaches you patience, a quality becoming increasingly rare in an age where everything can be delivered within hours. It's also a quiet form of gratitude for what you already have. Because during those 30 days of not rushing to add more, you might find yourself noticing what's already around you and realizing that it's still enough, still beautiful, still worthy. In those peak moments of desire, waiting becomes a gentle but powerful act of resistance, not against emotion, but for it to give it room to settle. The Japanese say, "The wise do not reject, they delay." It's not coldness, it's clarity. When something doesn't arrive in your life immediately, and yet it still feels right after time has passed, you welcome it with a different kind of presence, calmer, more deliberate, more assured. And the beautiful thing is, the more you practice this habit, the more you realize you don't need as much as you thought. Those waves of wanting begin to retreat. Your buying decisions feel lighter, freer from regret. You no longer have to declutter things that once made you cringe. You're living from awareness, not reaction. That 30-day window, though brief, holds the power to shift your entire relationship with the material world. It offers you a quiet space to ask, do I truly need this, or am I just trying to fill something within me? When you answer that question honestly, you're not just choosing the right item, you're choosing a calmer, wiser, more compassionate way of living. And maybe, just maybe, daily joy doesn't come from what you add, but from what you've become patient enough to live without. 3. Value time and experiences over things. There's something strangely revealing about how, as we grow older, we begin to forget that time, once it passes, never comes back. We collect things, hold on to objects we believe are valuable, yet we quietly let precious moments slip through our fingers day after day. In the minimalist way of living embraced by the Japanese, there's a quiet yet powerful habit, valuing time and experiences over material possessions. It's not because they don't care about beauty, but because they believe true beauty can only be felt when we're fully present in the moment, undistracted by the glitter of things. When the Japanese gather under the cherry blossoms, they don't take photos just to post online, and they don't rush to find the best spot. They simply are there with friends, family, a homemade bento box, a bottle of gentle sake, and a silence full of reverence for the brief, exquisite bloom above their heads. Hanami is not a picnic, it's a ceremony of being, where time is honored as a gift. Similarly, when autumn arrives, the Japanese go to the mountains to witness the turning leaves. They call it koyo, and like Hanami, it's not a photo hunt or a shopping trip. It's a journey inward, a walk alongside nature's transformations that mirrors the quiet shifts happening within ourselves. No one brings heavy baggage. No one rushes. Because they understand the most valuable thing isn't what you bring home, it's what you experience in the now. Even in the hot springs, onsen, people bring almost nothing. No makeup, no fancy clothes. Everyone is the same, stripped of status, soaking in warm mineral water beneath the sky, talking softly, relaxing deeply, and connecting in a wordless kind of equality. It's not just about bathing, it's a spiritual release through something as simple and raw as shared presence. In all of these rituals, the spirit of mono no aware is unmistakable, that tender awareness of life's fragility and beauty in impermanence. And woven through is also madanai, a gentle regret for waste, especially when people choose possessions over presence, consumption over connection. And when you begin to value experiences over things, you'll notice how your life slowly becomes lighter. Instead of trying to fill drawers or rooms, you'll want to fill your heart and your memories. You'll see how a quiet walk with an old friend, a heartfelt conversation, or a slow moment watching the rain can bring more joy than anything new you could buy. These things take up no space, but they stay with you in your mind, your emotions, and the way you see the world. The Japanese live this way, choosing to invest time and money not to have more, but to live more deeply. They accumulate not to own, but to feel. And that truly is where joy begins. Not in how many things you have, but in how fully you've lived each fleeting moment. You don't need much, just enough to make you feel truly present and truly alive. 4. Simplify your surroundings and schedule. There are days when you wake up, look around the room you live in, and suddenly realize how many things are taking up space, not just physically, but mentally. Items you no longer use, promises left unfinished, appointments stacked so tightly that you don't even have time to take a deep breath. Everything feels like it's pulling you away from yourself. That's when you begin to understand why the Japanese hold simplicity in such high regard, not as an aesthetic trend, but as an essential path back to inner stillness. In Japanese culture, there's a unique concept called ma, the space between. But ma isn't emptiness in the sense of lack. It's the active presence of what's not there. A Japanese painting doesn't need to be filled with every detail, because it's the blank space that allows the mind to breathe. In a traditional home, the tokonoma, a quiet alcove, holds just one flower, a scroll, or a meaningful object, not for decoration, but for contemplation. The fewer distractions around you, the easier it becomes to see what truly matters. This way of living is reflected not just in space, but in time. The phrase hara hachibu, eat until 80% full, isn't only about meals. It applies to scheduling as well. The Japanese intentionally leave gaps in their days, breathing room for spontaneity, rest, or quiet reflection, because they understand that a life too full is a mind too tired. Simplicity in Japanese life isn't separate from a deep reverence for nature and the unseen world. In Shinto belief, everything holds spirit, even the room you live in. And when that space becomes chaotic or crowded, it's believed the energy of the space, its spirit, can no longer settle peacefully. That's why practices like osoji, the year-end ritual deep cleaning, are so meaningful. It's not just about scrubbing floors, it's about purifying the heart and welcoming the new year with clarity and respect. The magic is this: when you begin to clear away not just your things, but also your time, you'll notice how your space opens up and your heart follows. You're no longer pulled into the noise of the unnecessary. You can sit still, watch sunlight move slowly across a wall, and feel stillness like an old friend returning home. You begin to realize that joy doesn't come from adding more, but from letting go. Not because you're lacking, but because you finally reached enough. The Japanese speak of seijaku, a deep, serene stillness. Within that stillness, nothing rushes. Everything unfolds slowly yet completely. You can do less, see fewer people, own fewer things, and somehow live more fully, feel more clearly, and love life with a gentler rhythm. And if you ever feel yourself being swept away too quickly, try clearing just one small corner. Cancel one non-essential meeting. Just one moment of space in your room, your calendar, or your mind can be enough to begin again. Enough to come back to yourself. Enough to simply live. 5. Plan and shop with intention. Most of us have experienced that familiar moment, bringing home something new, only to wonder a few days later why we even bought it. That quiet, lingering sense of regret is like a small splinter in the mind, slowly eroding our trust in our own decisions. And from that discomfort, a gentle question begins to form. Maybe the answer isn't to buy less, but to buy with more intention. In Japan, the act of carefully recording every expense is nothing new. As early as 1904, Hanimotoko, Japan's first female journalist, introduced Kakibo, a household budgeting system created for homemakers, though its value goes far beyond accounting. Kakibo doesn't just ask how much you spent, it asks what you want to improve in your life. By writing things down, reviewing them regularly, and asking reflective questions, it becomes a meditative practice, gently guiding you toward mindful, thoughtful consumption. But this habit of planning goes beyond just finances. In every meal, The Japanese express this same mindfulness through quiet and subtle structure. The concept of ichiju sansai, one soup, three dishes, a portion of rice and pickles, embodies balance, moderation, and deep respect for food. Not too much, not too little. Just enough to feel nourished, light, and clear. When combined with Shokuiku Japan's philosophy of food education, each meal becomes a lesson in living, where every ingredient and every action is shaped by deliberate preparation. To support this way of life, the Japanese practice Saiketsu, the fourth pillar in the 5S method of organization, which teaches that cleanliness isn't just about wiping surfaces, but about consistency, order, and thoughtful routines. A written grocery list, a simple weekly menu, or a habit of streamlined cooking, all of it works quietly behind the scenes to save time, reduce waste, and most importantly, free the mind from the exhaustion of endless choices. But deep down, what's truly being liberated isn't just the pantry or the wallet, it's the feeling of agency. When you know exactly what you need, you're no longer swept away by the subtle currents of consumer culture. When you reach for something with certainty, you begin building a new kind of relationship with yourself, one rooted in trust, calm, and gratitude. The Japanese call this state eijoshin, a calm, centered mind. And in that space, you're no longer haunted by kaimamizu, that fleeting disappointment of buying something that slips through your hands like water. You no longer need material things to patch emotional gaps, because the act of planning something that once felt dry or rigid becomes a quiet ritual of respect for your own life. And if you're searching for a more lasting kind of joy, begin with something small. Make a plan, not to control every moment, but to be fully present in each choice. Because every intentional decision brings you closer to the life you actually want, a life with fewer regrets, more clarity, and a deeper, steadier joy that reveals itself a little more each day. 6. Practice care and maintenance. There's a kind of love that doesn't need grand gestures or constant reinvention, a quiet, steady love that lives in how we care for the little things in our lives. It's a love nurtured through cleaning, repairing, tending, and honoring the objects that have walked with us through time. In Japanese culture, care isn't a chore, it's a ritual. It's a way of saying, I'm grateful for your presence in my life. And the art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold, beautifully captures this spirit. Rather than hiding the cracks, the Japanese choose to highlight them as part of the object's history, a testament to resilience, and a reminder of the beauty in imperfection. In the wabi-sabi worldview, beauty isn't found in flawlessness, but in the traces of time that are gently held with tenderness. This reverence for care is also present in Bushido, the way of the samurai, where a sword is not merely a weapon, but an extension of honor. The act of maintaining it, polishing, sharpening, storing it properly, is a reflection of discipline and respect. From traditional shokunin craftsmen to homemakers, carefully laying out the tablecloth, the Japanese believe that even everyday objects deserve care, because everything holds value when treated with gratitude. And from that same spirit of gratitude, arigato, seemingly ordinary tasks like folding clothes or sharpening a knife become quiet meditations. No one rushes while folding a kimono. No one is careless when cleaning a family heirloom, because every time you touch an object with intention, you're reconnecting with life, with tradition, and with yourself. When you choose to repair something instead of replacing it, you're telling the world that you don't believe in disposability. You believe in renewal. And as you learn to care for your belongings, you also learn to care for your emotions with more patience, more subtlety, and a deeper awareness of what it means to cherish what you have. In Japan, objects aren't seen as mere tools to serve us. They are companions we live alongside, a mutual relationship where maintenance is a form of gratitude. And in that relationship, joy doesn't come from having more, but from feeling a sense of companionship, of shared history, and of healing together. A life where everything is cared for, from the smallest utensil to the most ordinary routines, becomes a home that is not only tidy, but emotionally alive. Because those repeated, quiet acts of care, when done with love, begin to transform not just your space, but your spirit too. And one day, you'll realize you don't need to change everything to feel full. You just need to start with something simple, tending to what you already have, wholeheartedly. 7. Routinely reassess and let go. Some things once brought us joy, once felt essential to our lives, but over time, they quietly became burdens, silently lingering without notice. A book we once cherished now gathers dust on the shelf. A habit that once gave us comfort now feels like a weight. An old worry still clings to us, even though it no longer belongs in the present. And in that moment of reflection, we begin to see clearly not everything that once mattered needs to be kept. Some things need to be released, so that we ourselves can move forward. The Japanese call this danshari, to refuse, to dispose, to separate. It's not just about tidying a home, but a deeply philosophical act. To say no to what's unnecessary, to part with what no longer serves us, and to detach from what we're clinging to without reason. It's a gentle, intentional process that doesn't demand minimalism, but instead invites a quiet question. Does this still support the life I'm living now? Practicing danshari is about letting go, not through force, but through reverence. Like the year-end ritual of asoji, where the home is clean not just for hygiene, but to symbolically close the past and clear space for what's to come. And it's not limited to the physical, we must also tend to the emotional. Unspoken frustrations, unresolved disappointments, outdated patterns, we carry them unknowingly like emotional debris, unless we find the courage to release them. In Shinto, the purification ritual misogi uses cold water to cleanse not only the body, but also the mind and spirit. It's not an act of punishment, but a return to clarity, a way of rinsing away the things that have clouded our inner waters. And sometimes, we too need a ritual like that, even if it's just a page in a journal, a conscious breath, or a moment of silence in a busy day to remind ourselves that we have the right to set down what no longer belongs. In Japanese aesthetics, the concept of negative space is ever present. It's not emptiness as absence, but emptiness as presence, an empty shelf, a bare corner of a desk, an unfilled afternoon. These are not gaps to be fixed, but openings for possibility, reminders that we do not need to fill every inch of our lives to feel whole. Routinely reassessing our lives, our belongings, our habits, our emotions, isn't just about being tidy, it's about being clear. In a world that constantly urges us toward more, faster, louder, the act of pausing to look inward and gently let go becomes a way of protecting our peace. As a Zen saying goes, it is in the empty space that all potential exists. And when we find the courage to say goodbye to a possession, a belief, or a past version of ourselves, we open the door to something better aligned with who we are now. We become lighter, freer, more spacious within. No longer trapped by what once was, no longer suffocated by accumulation. Just a quiet clarity remains, a soft, open stillness where we can begin again, gently and with ease. In the end, when we look back at these 7 quiet yet profound habits from Japanese minimalism, we don't find strict rules or rigid expectations. What we see are gentle ways of touching life, like wind brushing past leaves, like light slipping through a curtain, soft, but powerful enough to stir something deep within the soul. Each action, whether it's folding a shirt, slowing your pace, or letting go of something old, becomes a small step toward a life that feels full from the inside out. You don't have to change everything. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to live like anyone else. You only need to begin with a small moment of awareness, placing your hand on something and asking, do I still need this? Waking up just a little earlier to sit in the stillness before the day begins. Choosing, even once, to move slowly in a world that rushes. Happiness isn't a mountaintop to conquer. It's a quiet current we can step into at any time, as long as we're still enough to notice it. And perhaps, it's these small habits, nurtured with presence, with gratitude, with a gentle love for the simple things that slowly lead us to live more deeply, more lightly, and more joyfully with each passing day. If something you've just heard has stirred something within you, start small, a drawer, a morning, or even just a single breath. There's no need to rush. Life is always waiting for you, in the quietest of places,